It's time for 41 is the Mic, a weekly Chiefs podcast with Nick Jacobs of KSHB 41 and Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest. 41 is the Mic starts now.
Kansas City Chiefs are 13-1, but the sky is falling. No, it's not really. Everything's going to be okay. And I'm sure of that because I'm here alongside, and I'm Matt Derrick, alongside Nick Jacobs, turnover enthusiast from KSHB 41. Nick, I mean, this team just keeps doing things in a weird way. I don't even know. I don't, once again, I mean, this wasn't a close game, but I still can't explain how this team does its work.
I mean, look, they controlled I would say 95% of that game. They controlled the game. They controlled the tempo. They dictated it. They forced Jameis Winston to get uneasy and to overthrow, which he's prone to do when you get pressure. The Chiefs defense was able to get pressure in a way that they haven't in quite some time. They were able to take advantage of the poor throws and the turnovers, and the Chiefs were able to kind of never let the Browns get into a rhythm the way that they did against the Denver Broncos on Monday Night Football. So that's a credit to what Steve Spagnuolo and the defense did. Chiefs offense had probably 2 or 3 really good drives, maybe 4, but they were very inconsistent overall. Joe Thuney had a strong performance early. I mean, we'll get into all that, but I mean, there was inconsistencies. I mean, if the Chiefs were on point and it was a handful of years ago, that could have been 48-7, something like that. But that's just not who this team is this year. And at some point, people are going to have to kind of accept this is the roster. These are the warts. And they're, it may work out, it may not.
Well, obviously, the most watched body part of the week in Kansas City is going to be the right ankle of Patrick Mahomes. And, I mean, based on what we have heard so far, Nick, I mean, it doesn't sound that bad. I mean, Patrick said that he felt like he could have gone back into the game if he needed to at that point. There was just under 8 minutes left when he left. Carson Wentz obviously needs some work. I didn't see much fight out of Mahomes. I mean, there have been times when he's been banged up and Andy Reid's want to take him out of the game, and we've seen him, put up a struggle. He didn't seem like he was arguing too much today.
No, how could he? The hits he was taking, there gets to a point where you could see when he's laying on the ground there a couple of times, he was frustrated and he was hurting, and that's for as much as people continue and want to ask what's wrong with Patrick Mahomes' accuracy on deep ball passes and everything. It's a culmination of this season, in my opinion, and that's what I'm going to continue to say, whether people disagree with me or not. Or agree with me or not, disagree with me too, whatever you want to do, is that those hits add up. They add up on his body. They add up for every player out there. And so for Patrick Mahomes, part of it can be he's got a certain timer in his head of when he needs to get it out there. Part of it can be the conditions with the weather out there. Part of it can be him, maybe the receiver not being on the same page. And part of it can just be the wear and tear of just getting hit like a human pinata, as I say over and over again throughout the season. If I remember correctly, I heard a number earlier today that the Chiefs, on third down, Mahomes has had 40 pressure. There's been 40 pressures on third down against Mahomes this year. This is the most Patrick Mahomes has ever been sacked in a single season. Those things add up. And I don't think enough people understand just because he's physically out there and gritting through things doesn't mean his body is not sore probably every single day since early September, and in ways that it hasn't been in the past when he had better offensive tackle protection.
Yeah, and here was the dichotomy of what I saw today, which was combined with what we heard during the week, because there was a lot of talk from the coaches throughout the week this week about getting rid of the football quickly, and those are the things that you got to do, and getting things out on time. And I just did not feel like that we saw that from Mahomes today. I mean, he had more time to throw than he does at times. I mean, the pocket was, I felt like it was better today. It wasn't always better. It was inconsistent. There were moments when he had all the time in the world to throw, and then there were moments where it felt like just a regular Sunday. I mean, but he took every single second and then some of the time that he had to throw, and it felt like, he took a few shots deep, which Joe Blameyer told us earlier this week were low percentage shots. But he took a few of those, weren't successful. And then, there was one in particular, it was, and I'm trying to remember who was the intended target. It was in that stretch of 8 consecutive incompletions that he had in the third quarter. And on one of those drives when they go 3 and out rather, on back-to-back drives with nothing but incomplete passes. And I see him throw to a guy in double coverage, and yet Travis Kelce's at the top of the screen completely wide open. I mean, we know that Patrick Mahomes' decision-making is better than that, but this is just a case of the hits that he's taking is a big part of affecting his decision-making, and it's affecting his rhythm.
Yeah, well, all of it adds into it. Every single body blow that he's taken this year adds into it, and I just don't think enough people will entertain. It will kind of tie those together in the way that they should. So, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is human. He is not, in fact, a robot. So,
Take that back, Nick. He is absolutely a robot.
Well, but I'm just saying, it's just things have added up, and the fact that he got injured, I was concerned about that. You're concerned about that on every play for me personally, for the past 8, 9, 10 games. But I'm a paranoid individual, so I'm just expecting the bottom to fall out. So, for Patrick to have the ankle injury, for it to only be an ankle injury based on what that replay looked like, that's a credit to him and Bobby Stroup for the flexibility that they create for him. Because for other quarterbacks, that could have been a lot worse. Yeah,
I thought about the time that I think Andy Reid said that he's made of rubber bands in places because he got bent like a pretzel, and I thought that was going to be a lot worse.
But the thing I will say, Matt, the thing we all need to start understanding and realizing, he's getting close to 30, and the recovery is not going to be the same in the years ahead. That's why no matter what happens this year, they're going to have to resolve the O-line issue in multiple ways, because he may not be able to come back from some of those things as quick as he could when he was younger. And that's what I don't know if enough people are realizing how close he's literally a year away from 30. Next September, he's going to turn 30, if I remember correctly. And at that point, your body gets slower to recover with each passing year. And that's even more so true in the NFL.
Yeah, and Mahomes had made the observation also in his post-game press conference where he talked about he's not going to really know how he feels until Monday, once the adrenaline wears off, and that's when he truly, gets a feeling for how it is and can kind of compare it for us. We're not going to get to talk to the team, unfortunately, on Monday. They're going to be dark, so it won't be until Tuesday that we really get an update. But I mean, at least what we saw on Sunday after the game, best case scenario, I think you'd have to make that case. We'll see how it goes from here. One more question about the offensive line and what you saw today, Nick. Do you want to see more of what you saw today? Are you comfortable with Joe Thuney at left tackle and Mike Caliendo at left guard if they had to do it for a while?
I want to see the coach's film, and I'll have a definitive answer later in the week. But I mean, early on, they were able to get the job done for the most part. There wasn't as quick a pressure as there was, but when the Browns started adjusting there in the second half, there were some times where they were bringing blitzes, and the Chiefs play call wise had deeper drops and deeper steps, and they didn't have the quick hitting stuff for Mahomes to be able to get under the ball quicker and try to keep that rhythm. So some of that ended up getting them, and then some of the screen passes they maybe would have, maybe trying those if they know those blitzes are coming. Maybe those are a little different, but from a play calling perspective, I feel like it got out of sync to a certain extent. And I think they thought there was more that they could work on there in the second half of what the protection was doing. And then the Browns adjusted to some things. And the crossing route was there for most of the day. And, Worthy was able to take advantage of that. And, it was there for the taking. But yeah, there was times where I feel like they got away from the run to trying to keep them in steady, favorable matchups, down in distance wise. But yeah, no, yeah, there was some times where I'm like, man, I would have, even if you don't get the first down, just try to keep your rhythm. Do some shorter passes. You may not win the drive, but the number one thing is to try to keep rhythm when you have that game in control.
Yeah, that the third quarter could be just a case study in what can go wrong because nothing went right for the offense in that third quarter. And You're right. I mean, give the Browns credit. They made some adjustments. They got the job done. They stopped the Chiefs, repeatedly in that third quarter. Fortunately for the Chiefs, their defense did the job too. Special teams did it as well. And let's go. Might as well start off at the very beginning. I mean, because setting the tone, forcing that turnover on the punt return, setting up the first touchdown, and Chris Roland Wallace punched that ball out on the punt return. I mean, that set the tone for the rest of the day because it became a turnover happy day the rest of the day.
Yeah, I mean, sloppy field conditions definitely didn't hurt the Chiefs' opportunities, but I took advantage with the 2 fumbles that they recovered and then the 4 interceptions. I mean, that there's really not much more Steve Spagnuolo could have asked in terms of what they could, and Dave Toub for that matter, of what they could do to get the ball to the Chiefs and give them every opportunity possible.
Yeah, not very often was it that the Chiefs came into this game with 10 takeaways on the season, and now they're up to 16 after this one. That's a turnover party, and I mean, obviously, if you're Steve Spagnuolo, you're hoping that this is contagious, that they can keep this up because the big plays are what this defense usually makes its money on. I mean, they've obviously had a pretty good run the last couple of years, but normally a Steve Spagnuolo defense gets more sacks, gets more turnovers. 5 sacks, 6 turnovers. I mean, you'd like to see, you're not going to get 6 turnovers every week, Nick, but you'd like to see 3 or 4 sacks every week, right?
Look, for the defense, this was everything that they wanted and needed. And you're just waiting to see if they can do that again when they go up against the Texans on Saturday, which you can watch on KSHB 41. Pregame will be at 10 a.m. and Football Night in America will be 11 a.m. and then the game will be from noon to 3, followed by postgame. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Chiefs are able to do with a mobile C.J. Stroud because the Dolphins had trouble with him and Nico Collins today.
Yeah. I mean, getting over to the defense, what stood out to you? What was different this week? Was it just simply the opponent, or was this just the great game plan, good execution? Was there anything specifically about this defense that stood out to you that we just haven't seen a lot of the season?
I think the defensive line was motivated to try to win some more of their one-on-ones. Karlaftis was screaming off the edge. Omenihu was able to kind of, when Jameis had to hold the ball a tick, and he was able to take advantage of that and come around and smack the ball out. Chris Jones had a couple one-on-ones he was trying to take advantage of, and he unfortunately ended up losing one of the sacks he would have had, and that went to Tershawn Wharton because Chris pushed him right up to where Wharton got that sack. So the Chiefs, I mean, it was a combination of the Chiefs defense being able to have some coverage opportunities and Winston maybe not seeing a couple guys here and there, and the Chiefs D-line taking advantage of it. So, and then, like I said, with the rain, with the conditions and rain and everything, or maybe sometimes where maybe Winston throws that when it's clear outside and there's not an issue.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Jones probably has another one of those silent Chris Jones days. You mentioned, missing out on the sack that Tershawn Wharton gets. But again, it seemed like, once again, a lot of everything keyed off of Chris Jones. Chris Jones was getting a lot of the attention. Guys got one-on-one matchups. They won him today. Yeah.
They were able to win them, so I mean you can't complain on that.
It was, I think, a really good, cruel moment for Trent McDuffie to finally get his first NFL interception. His teammates were happy for him on that one. They've been looking and waiting for that one. But that was an all-around solid day on Trent McDuffie because after Chamari Connor goes down, now the Chiefs are asking him to play a little bit more in the slot, follow Jerry Jeudy the entire second half for the most part. Did a good job of shutting him down.
Yeah. No, I mean, for Jeudy to not have a dominant day, that spoke volumes to what the Chiefs were able to do from a secondary perspective. I mean, he still had 100, but I mean, it could have been a lot worse with the standard he set against the Broncos a couple weeks ago, going over 200. So, yeah, they held Jeudy more in check than I think people were expecting and realized.
Yeah, there was if you haven't seen it yet, it's a hilarious story about Trent McDuffie, saying that he looked up at the Jumbotron and saw where the ball was going. and he's like, okay, it's go time. Let's get this ball. But, I mean, if Chamari Connor's, injury is going to keep him out, I mean, and with a short week, hey, every concussion is different. We know that. Not betting against him necessarily being available next Tuesday. But if you do not have Chamari Connor, you're looking at probably having to use Trent McDuffie in a similar type way next week, right? I mean, because you've got to, if you're the Chiefs, I mean, Trent McDuffie is by far your best, now certainly your best corner in the slot, and you gotta take care of Nico Collins.
Yeah, I mean, Nico Collins is priority number one next week. No matter, don't worry about Tank Dell, don't worry about Mechie. Nico Collins is number one. Wherever he goes is where Trent McDuffie needs to be.
Yeah, and once again, I know you'll have more when you see the all 22. But did anything stand out to you from the rest of the corners? I mean, it was another juggling act today. I mean, we saw Josh Williams and Najee Johnson kind of shuffle around a little bit. Saw more Chris Roland Wallace today. Is there anything that gave you hope that you saw today, Nick, that was like, okay, maybe one of these guys is going to figure it out?
I mean, just from when I saw them broadcast, they were physical in their tackles, and other than Josh Williams getting a couple penalties, I don't feel like a lot of them got down on themselves or looked frustrated body language wise. But in terms of how they overall performed, I mean, the broadcast only gives you a piece of that puzzle. The all 22 gives you a much better idea of how the teams were attacking, how they were trying to manipulate their coverages, and everything that they were trying to do.
Yeah, I know that, Najee took a little bit of the grief and got pulled out of the game after the touchdown run by Ford. I mean, I thought that was just kind of a breakdown across the board. I thought you could probably blame that touchdown about 6 different guys. It was obviously a very well executed play by the Browns. I didn't think it was as much Nazee's fault as I think some other people did.
I mean, Judy had a great block on it, and a lot of pursuit angles weren't able to get there.
Yeah, and here we are. I mean, Nick, it's we've got Trent McDuffie with his first career interception. Jaden Hicks already has 2.
Jaden looked good in the open field after he got that interception. I mean, he reminded me a little bit of Eric Berry in the way Eric Berry, after he got an interception, the way Eric could see the entire field and navigate through it, Hicks showed some of that skill and capability.
Now, and the other part of the game, I mean, we talked about special teams getting everything started with making a big play. After that, special teams was up and down. Matt Derrick, I mean, he did have 9 punts, and I think at least 7 of them were really good punts. One was not his best, but pointed out our mutual friend Danny Klingscale, said, hey, there's probably been some times that the Chiefs haven't had 9 punts in a month. Matt Derrick only had to punt 6 times in October, Nick. He had to punt 9 times today.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
It's one of those days, man.
What did you think about the field goal at the end of the first half? That quite a bit of confusion because James Winchester and Matt Derrick were not on the field. Harrison Butker was signaling for them to come in. Didn't look like Harrison was maybe in his best mindset. He looked a little frustrated on that, and then of course misses the kick and has the going down to his knee again. What did you make of all that?
So I mean, on the 4th and 2, I was kind of hoping Andy and them would go for it to try to put themselves up 21. And I mean, I thought they had a play that it looked like it was going to be a screen or Pacheco, maybe an angle route or something, maybe a crosser in there somewhere. But they were going to give themselves an opportunity to have 3 quick reads for Mahomes. So in that regard, I would have loved to have seen it because it kind of shifts the mindset and puts them in a little bit different mentality, kind of creates a new spark and excitement that they are going for it, in the 4th down there inside the opponent to really try to put a dagger in them there in the first half. I believe it's still the first half at that point. And in terms of Butker and everything, yeah, he looked a little frazzled, looked a little frustrated. And like you said, whenever the way he's doing that, I know some people on Twitter responded and said that he's been doing that all year. I don't remember it sticking out that prominently in that way, the way that he rotates. But if he has been doing it all year, it makes a little bit more sense to me about why the knee injury may have been the way it was, because the way that torques and that pressure that put on torque-wise, I'm like, ooh, boy, it's a lot of – all right. So, I mean, hey, at the end of the day, he's been able to be a very accurate kicker because of it. But like Dave Toub told us at the presser a couple, when I asked him like how you kind of, maneuver this to where you got 3 games and depending on how you want to count it up, 10 or 11 days, technically it's 10 days and 21 hours from the time the game ended today until they play at noon on Christmas Day. But technically it's 11 days, however you want to do it. I don't really care. But we can say in less than 12 days if we want to. That's how we can do it if we want to be technical on that one. But yeah, how they navigate that and everything. So, there's enough spacing between Sunday to Saturday, from Sunday to Christmas. That'll be interesting for a lot of people. And Chiefs are going to have some decisions they're going to have to make overall about the health of this roster and who they do or don't play in that quick of a span between Saturday to the following Wednesday.
Yeah, we're recording this obviously as the Bills and Steelers are playing, so we don't know what the Chiefs' magic number is quite yet. But you've alluded to it. Next week, Chiefs on Saturday on KSHB 41 will be hosting the Houston Texans. That'll be a more difficult matchup than this one was today, Nick. Any lessons learned today? Anything takeaway that you take from this game that the Chiefs either need to work on or something that they can apply next week?
We'll see what the weather conditions end up turning into, but I'm interested to see the Texans and everything. I think the Chiefs are probably going to take a lot of stuff of what they did against the 49ers, because the Texans run a similar defensive concept. So I think the Texans are going to look at a lot of that. Chiefs will look at a lot of that, but more than anything else, depending on who they have at left tackle, if it's Joe Thuney or, because he'll probably be going up against Will Anderson potentially, but overall, the biggest things that I kind of want to see, I just want to see them be okay with staying in rhythm, the short passing game for the offense, no matter who starts at quarterback, whether it's Mahomes or Wentz. We'll find out as the week goes along and everything. But just trying to get this offense collectively in a rhythm. And, I understand trying to do some of the 5 and 7-step drops and everything, but there's going to be times where maybe you want to try that, because if you take Mahomes on that one play when he threw in double, it ended up on our broadcast, it turned into double coverage. I don't know what it was at the time he was throwing when he went to Watson early on, but Xavier's open on that crossing route underneath, and you get that Xavier early on before it started raining. He could take that 20, 30, 40 yards potentially with the step that he had on the defender if he catches the ball. Now, it doesn't guarantee he's going to, we're assuming he's going to catch the ball, but I'm saying that possibility of that outcome's there. And I think the game was a little bit differently. I think there's a different rhythm, but throwing that ball to Watson and having two defenders there. And, I think that kind of started a little bit of the chipping away and from what they had built up confidence early on.
Well, it's going to be a very interesting week watching the injuries this week heading into a Saturday game. Obviously, Mahomes will be the one that we're watching the most in that right ankle. And, you do obviously have to consider the fact that you then have a very, very quick turnaround with only 3 days of rest going from the Texans to the Steelers. And you've got to also take that into consideration when you're talking about, hey, how early can Hollywood Brown come back? When can DJ Humphries come back? There's a lot to still consider, Nick. So, this team has some tough decisions to work through this week. It's only one day shorter than a usual week, but that's something that is still, NFL teams don't like having a day taken away from them, and the Chiefs got to deal with it this week.
It's a big difference this time of year, and it'll be even tougher decisions after Saturday's game and what they want to do on Christmas Day.
Well, we appreciate you all coming here to break down the game and join us for another episode of 41 is the Mic. We'll be back on Tuesday night with the Chiefs Digest Q&A and answer all your questions, break down some of the things we hear on Tuesday, since that will be an availability day. It's not usually, so we'll be able to talk a little bit about what we hear and see from there. And then, like you said, Nick, next Saturday on KSHB 41, pregame show starts at 10.
Yep, that it does.
It's an early start, but at least it's a noon game, Nick.
Yeah, we'll get through it together.
We'll get through it together. We'll get the podcast done, and we'll get to bed at a decent hour. So
time will tell, Matt.
Hey, with that, everybody have a great week. Take care. We will see you Tuesday night, and then you'll be back. We'll be back in your podcast feed with 41 is the Mic next Saturday. Take care, everybody.
Good you do.
You've been listening to 41 is the Mic, presented by KSHB 41, your home of the Chiefs and Chiefs Digest.